Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mona's Rants. I am your host, Mona Sheikh. Very excited to be back. You guys, we're doing an early live stream today, mainly because I have a very special guest. They cannot do nighttime our time, mainly because they are located in Tel Aviv, all the way in Israel. And I'm very excited to have this guest. She's hilarious. I've worked with her a couple of times, and I've just had the pleasure of working with a very funny Israeli comic. James said, "Good afternoon, everyone." That said, "I guess we are in the calm before the storm." Yes, we are. I keep seeing news report on how well Israel is vaccinating their country. I hope Noam shares with us what they are doing right. All right, awesome. Well, I'm very excited to bring on my very hilarious friend today. She's an Israeli comic, performs all over, opens for Masterani. The very talented Noam. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
So
nice
happy
to see you. Oh my God, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
I'm happy to be here after a long day of shooting, but you are more important.
You're so sweet. What were you shooting all day?
I was shooting a satire, like comedy sketch in Arabic that will piss off Bibi and his government.
That's what we do, Noam.
Yep.
We piss off fucked up politicians.
Yep, that's what I do all day, literally. Isn't it a blessing to do what to do what you love?
Oh.
piss off your racist government.
Oh, there's nothing better than that. No, my right now, James, my very loyal follower here, and he's become my internet friend. He said that Israel is doing a great job vaccinating their country. Have you been vaccinated yet?
I can't get vaccinated because I had COVID.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because you had the antibodies.
Yeah. I don't know if I mean they didn't explicitly say that people who got COVID are not going to be vaccinated, but for now we're not prioritized. So, it's me and the Palestinians. No one is vaccinating us.
You and the Palestinian, nobody's vaccinating you? That's so funny.
No, I mean, this is it's kind of weird. There's so many speculations to why Israel is doing so well with the vaccines. It's so funny.
Which vaccine are they doing? Pfizer, Moderna, which one?
Pfizer. I think they're getting a delivery of Moderna also soon. Yeah.
Wow.
But the situation here is not so good. We're entering a very extreme lockdown this week because the numbers are crazy.
Really?
Yep.
Didn't Israel? I mean, you're in Tel Aviv, right now?
I'm in Tel Aviv, yes.
So in Tel Aviv, did you guys not have a lockdown in the beginning of the year, and that's why the COVID cases have spiked?
No, we were doing very well in the beginning. People were hysterical. We had these hotels, which I was, when I landed back from the US and I got sick, I was quarantined in a hotel.
That's right.
People were really, really, really keeping the rules, and people were, dealing with it actually very well. If there is something Jews learned from the past, is to listen to their traumas.
Yes.
But then, I mean, the government did such a horrible job, and people saw that they're sacrificing so much from their, personal, life and work and income, that they just stopped listening. And so things started becoming very shaky, just like everywhere else.
Yeah.
So in September, we entered the second lockdown, and now we have a third lockdown, and numbers are pretty bad right now.
So even after the second lockdown, the cases were spiking.
Yes, it went down and now it's up again.
But did you guys have a lockdown, or did you guys have a stay-at-home order? Those are two separate things.
Lockdown.
So lockdown meaning nothing is open, no restaurants, no delivery.
Nothing. Right now, nothing is open.
Huh. So I'm a little confused, because New Zealand did the lockdown. Australia did the lockdown and their cases plummeted, like next to nothing, right? Their cases are almost next to nothing. So I'm curious as to why even after a lockdown in Tel Aviv, your cases were still spiking. That I'm a little confused by that.
Because people are not people are not people are not fully keeping up with the rules. People are gathering. Netanyahu wanted to save his ass from prison and signed a peace deal with Dubai, so everyone went and partied, not here but abroad, so the airports and this and that. So it's a bunch of things. It's very complicated. Also, I mean, Israel is a very fragmented society. We have the ultra-Orthodox community. We have the Palestinian citizens of Israel. There are issues of trust between the authorities and some populations in Israel. And organically and normally and naturally, they don't trust that the authorities are going to protect them. So not everyone are listening to the same type of, rules and regulations. Everything is very, very sensitive here, and there's so much stigma and stereotypes, and to some extent it's very, very similar to the United States, where you see that there are patterns, and you see that there are populations that are able to that there are populations that are criticize other people, and it's a mess. Also, I think that people at some point are just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like go outside, live my life, see my friends,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No. I know we've talked a great deal about it. I mean, when you survived COVID, I mean, CNN did a whole piece on you and they followed you, right? In Israel, and you guys were at it was like a COVID hotel where so, and it was it was Jews and Muslims and Palestinians and Israelis, everybody hanging out. I love the fact that COVID is the reason that people were coming together and not fighting and like singing songs together and like celebrating. And I'm like, you did a comedy bit at one point, right?
I know, yeah. It's so funny. It's been 10 months, so I'm thinking about it, like it was so crazy because when I got sick at the time in March, I was coming back from Harvard. I was in the middle of this amazing fellowship at Harvard as an artist resident fellow at the Divinity School, writing a comedy show. I got this amazing opportunity. And then, everything shut down. You already know. And I made my way to the US, and I didn't know that, like, it's going to be the best thing that happens to a comedian when you get sick with COVID, because in the beginning it was so sexy, it was so sexy. It was like all boiling in your lungs and new, and people didn't know what it means, so when I got COVID, I was so scared, and my body was so tired. I really had really unpleasant symptoms. I was in the hospital with oxygen, blah blah blah. And then I got to the hotel, and I didn't know what kind of a crazy experience is waiting for me. Because I mean, you know a little bit of my background. I grew up as this like poster girl of like peace and coexistence efforts in Israel. My parents are these leftist activists who raised me in a community with Palestinians, and I speak Arabic, and I've been an activist all my life. But when I got to the hotel, I saw such a rare human example of very radical compassion between all sectors and sides of the society of, Palestinians and Israelis. And then you're thinking to yourself, it's like, I'm in a hotel, everybody's getting along, everybody's taking care of each other. People are asking you, how are you feeling? What's wrong? And I'm not wearing a hat of like an activist. I'm just a sick person like everyone else. But it was such a vivid example of the understanding that we needed like this external threat to show us that if Palestinians are sick, Jews are going to get sick. If Jews are sick, Palestinians are sick, because we are so intertwined into each other, And it's not like all the problems went away or something. I was actually worried when everyone were getting along. I was like, what the hell? I'm trying to build a stand-up career on the fact that we have a conflict, so don't get along too well. So I staged a fight in the hotel every day at 4 p.m. so I can feel at home.
Stage a fight every day.
I staged fight because everybody were getting along and it was driving me crazy. No, I'm joking, but actually, it's not to say that all the inequalities and the injustices didn't exist outside, but there was something very, very rare about this experience.
Yeah.
That I will never forget. And for me, what it means, because I can't duplicate this experience, it's very rare. What it means is that when Jews and Palestinians, when Israelis and Palestinians get the same resources, treatment, being taken care of, magic can happen in this place,
Yes.
Magic. People feel like they're being respected.
Yeah.
People feel like they're being treated the same, regardless of their race and ethnicity. And it made all the difference. And this is what can make the difference for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Noam. I mean, well said. Noam, I think what fascinates me about your story, and I think you touched upon it a little bit, is your parents are these leftist, very very forward, very very peace motivated folks, and your dad did not refuse to join the IDF, and he went to prison for it.
Yes.
How long was he in prison for?
He was in prison for a few months on and off. It was when in the first Intifada, in the first Palestinian uprising, when I was about like 4 years old.
Yeah.
And my first memories of a child were kind of realizing that my father is in military detention because he's refusing to serve. And this is the kind of political household that I grew up in. Yeah. Understanding that there is a very sensitive political situation, and my parents are taking a stand. It's not something so radical. They just believe that Palestinians and Jews are equal, and they refuse to take part in military occupation.
Yeah.
Of the Palestinians. They took their what they believe in one step further when I was 7 years old. And they moved to the only community in Israel where Jews and Palestinians live together by choice. It's called in English the Oasis of Peace. In Hebrew, it's Neve Shalom, Arabic Wahat Salam. So I grew up like this, actually. I got this bilingual education. Amazing. And I grew up with Palestinians. And so all my life, really, I was always exposed to both sides, to both narratives.
Yeah.
And nothing was being hidden from me. I learned that Israeli Independence Day is not just Israeli Independence Day. It's also the day of suffering and mourning, the day that my Palestinian neighbors and friends lost something. Yeah. And so these two realities always existed and were acknowledged in my upbringing.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I was gonna say that you had this upbringing of like learning Arabic and learning Hebrew, and I'm just like, I wonder if you were taught the curse words ahead of time, because that's what happens, right? When you learn another language, you're just like, let me start off with the profanity first. Teach me all the dirty words first.
It's so embarrassing, Mona. People are like, oh, Arabic, it's such a rich language. And I'm like, but actually the Arabic I know is like the Arabic you need to know to get along, in your life. It's a very different from the literal, like nice, beautiful Arabic.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Like it's a very different, like you speak the same. I would think is it the dialect, the Arabic dialect of Palestinians? I'm sure is very different than what's speaking in the Khalij.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah,
but I'm speaking about like there's like a high literal like Fusha, and there is the Amiyya, the spoken Arabic that because you live with it and you get along with it, and
yeah.
So sometimes people who think they know Arabic, they're like, oh, can you teach me how to say, like, I need to go pee? Like they say it in a very like polite manner, and I'm like, no, you say ana zahmane, like
very slang. You're saying
yes.
The slang Arabic. That's what you're saying. Now you yourself also did not serve in the IDF, correct?
Yeah.
And that was you just following the footsteps of your dad.
Is it following the footsteps of my dad? I mean, I guess so. You know, when you grow up seeing the reality, it's very complex. Look, it's a very, very obviously a sensitive topic,
Sure.
and the army and our society is very militant, and there's a lot of glorification around the army and serving the IDF. Da 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 da. Da. The thing is that for me to wear uniform after I was raised and brought up and educated with Palestinians, it was really like a slap in the face. Mainly because my Arabic is so good that the intelligence would have wanted to use it, as they made it clear to me. And I'm like, you want me to use the Arabic that I know from my Palestinian neighbors and teachers so I can now become their spy? I'm like, no way. I'm never gonna do it. I'm not, this is not Fauda on Netflix. Like, this is not happening, you know?
Fauda is a good show, though. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a really good show, but it's like, it's not, you know, it's not my narrative. I'm not a Jew who learned Arabic for intelligence purposes. I learned Arabic to live with my neighbors, to communicate with my neighbors, to talk about justice, because this is the language of this place.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember this moment when the army sent me the first letter in 11th grade. You know, when we were in high school, we already start getting militarized in high school. And I remember I got this letter, and this letter was, you know, one of the letters that lets you know that you're about to be screened, and you need to start taking tests so they can know where to where to direct you, like where you're going to serve. And my best friend, who is a Palestinian, she was in my house when I got this letter. And mind you, Mona, this friend of mine, her name is Ranin. She is so good looking. She looks like Gigi Hadid.
Oh my goodness.
I look like Ahmadinejad next to her. Seriously. And no, seriously, when we cross checkpoints, when we cross checkpoints with my car, the Israeli soldiers, they can stop my car. They will look at her. They will like hit on her, ask for her number, and then they will look at me and ask for my ID. And I'm like, she's the Arab. I take her ID. I'm Noam. It's so funny. So she looked at me when I got this letter from the army, and she looked at me and she's like, do you understand the implications of you as an Israeli when you refuse to serve in the army? And at that moment, I decided I'm not going to serve, because I knew that if I want to create like some kind of an alternative for the future, I have to practice it. You can't preach, you know, to challenge the system without challenging the system yourself.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, no, that must have been, I mean, how did that make you feel? I mean, that must have been a little nerve-wracking, I would think.
It is nerve-wracking, though. I had like a trial. It was like a little committee court. And, you know, they yell at you. They tell you you're a traitor. You don't want to serve your country just because you blah, 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 blah. But honestly, it's so stupid. Like, it's so crazy that we have mandatory military service. It's crazy. Like, also women, you know, what we go through in the army, it's like trying to create equal equality between men and women in the army so that women become more like combat fighters. No, I don't want more combat fighters. I want people who leave high school not to go to the army. They need to start their life.
Right, absolutely. You know, I actually wondered that I would think that the barracks would be for men and women in the army in IDF would be separate, right? Because the men and women must be separate. They must be separate, right?
Yeah, but one of the things that the Israeli army really, really is proud of, that more and more women are becoming more and more, you know, a senior ranking in the military. Instead of demilitarizing our society, we're proud that more like Ethiopian Jews and women and marginalized groups are getting more and more, senior ranking in the army. So it's all backwards, Mona. It's all backwards.
Yeah. I mean, no, I am never for anyone who wants war or wants to encourage war of any kind. So I'm totally with you. You know, we had a situation in America where you know, Priyanka Chopra, who's an Indian actress who's now in Hollywood here,
Yeah.
and you know, there was this whole thing going on the border of India and Pakistan where they were fighting, and you know, they were talking about bombing each other. Now you have to understand they're both nuclear powers. If they start nuking each other, you're talking about millions of innocent lives that will be lost. I don't give a shit if they're Hindu lives or Muslim lives. There will be innocent people that will die in the process. And Priyanka Chopra, rather than saying we want peace, there should be peace, like please don't encourage war, she came out and she was like, I stand with the Indian military. I stand with the Indian army. And it's like, you're an artist. You're supposed to be preaching love and peace. Like, we don't need more art. We don't need artists to go and encourage this kind of hateful rhetoric. I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. You know,
Yeah.
right now, what's her name? Gal Gadot is very big with the whole Wonder Woman thing. I mean, she serves in the IDF. She's very active in verbalizing how she supports the IDF. What are your kind of thoughts on that?
Look, I mean, we know where the resources are and who has the cultural resources and the power, you know, to amplify, you know, these the narratives that are like in power right now. The United States and Israel, obviously, in terms of budgets and resources and cultural, you know, power of narratives, they're winning. They're winning. You know, I have nothing to say. She has every right, and she probably feels like she's on top of the world, and you know, and again, I don't have anything personal against any woman who is successful and who's, you know, I know as an artist, as a comedian, as the woman who grew up with Palestinians, I feel like it is my responsibility when I get a stage, when I get a screen, when I get a mic, it is my responsibility, my privilege and honor to speak up for those who can't.
Yeah.
It's not a very hard task to speak up for the already powerful. It's not hard. It's actually very, very profitable.
Of course it is.
You know, I was just offered to do a Zoom show for like a hasbara, for an organization for the IDF that is performing in front of like young people in Dubai, like entrepreneurs and stuff. Now, you know, it's Corona time. Artists are, you know, we're starving. I get offered like $500 for a Zoom show. I said no. I said no because I'm not gonna do this like fake empty hasbara that doesn't challenge the power dynamics, that doesn't challenge the power norms. If you want to, you know, if you really, I am doing this because I believe that, you know, I failed as an activist. I failed as a peace activist. What I'm doing now is using this craft to amplify messages, to speak for the voiceless, to tell my personal story in hope that people will know that it's not okay that Palestinians are living under occupation. That, you know, I'm not here to show what a great, amazing democracy Israel is. And, oh, look, there is a comedian who's like open-minded and woke and liberal. It's not my task. You know, my task is to be in solidarity with the marginalized and to challenge the power dynamics.
Yeah. I mean, I think everything you stand for, Noam, and I think that's what attracted me to you is you are like me. You root for the underdog. You know, I mean, because I'm an underdog, and I have a lot of love and respect for other underdogs. So I'm totally with you. James asked, "Is it still true that the ultra-Orthodox sects are excused from military service? Is that true?"
Yes.
So if you're if you're ultra-Orthodox, men or women, you don't have to serve.
Yeah, ultra-Orthodox men or women don't have to serve. Some of them, because there is a lot of public criticism on the fact that they don't serve. Sorry, Tel Aviv is very loud. Excuse me.
I grew up in New York. There's fucking
Yeah.
drilling happening in the background. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's like drilling happening right now in my background.
Yeah.
So
Um,
the joys of living in big cities.
so there is a lot of public criticism on the fact that they don't serve in the army. Some of them volunteer, but they're excused. And
Yeah,
people are like, oh, the ultra orthodox people must serve in the army, but the army doesn't have the facilities to.
right, to
Yeah.
accommodate.
Oh, who is this? Sean Carter just wrote something nice because.
He said because you have empathy, you have a soul.
Oh, thank you.
That's what-
Someone is not cursing me for my opinions.
Oh, good
That's
to know.
nice.
Not here. Sean Carter also said my brother looks like fucking Tay Diggs. So he says freaking Trey. Feel you, my friend. So you're not alone in that, Noam. Noam, you started doing comedy. You've been doing comedy for how long now? About 4 years?
It's 3.5 years.
Okay.
Which is nothing in comedy years. Nothing in comedy years.
You're barely a fetus right now.
Yeah, seriously.
But it sounds like, you've made really great waves. I mean, before you were doing this, were you in school or like what were you doing that got you into stand-up comedy?
I've always had so much love for performance and stage, and I was always very, very like confident in terms of being on stage. Like I'm a very tall woman. I'm like 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you express yourself as a child, that it's a little bit like an outsider or a woman that is averagely taller than other girls and stuff.
Yeah.
So you find a way to communicate with the world, and for me that was always the stage. But with the years, I studied acting and theater and stuff, but with the years I really navigated all this energy to working for the UN, and I was an activist, and I was doing all this like peace and justice work and stuff. And when I finished, when I got fired from the UN like 3.5 years ago, I
fired from the UN? You said fired?
I got fired from the UN. I was in charge of this like peace building mission. We were countering extremism in Israeli society. We had all these like group tasks and stuff, and like it was crazy time. I was long, like I had like a really amazing career that felt like very, very serious. And then it ended at once. Budgets ended. They decided to leave this project in Israel. And I remember sitting at home alone, not knowing what's next, and just remembering that the world is shifting. Comedians and artists and performers are being listened to more than politicians.
That's right.
And I missed that individual voice of wanting to express myself, to say my opinions uncensored, to use my voice creatively. And I just started, performing. And soon enough, the rumor made its way, and Palestinian comedians discovered this crazy Jewish comedian that's doing stand-up also in Arabic. And I started performing also with Palestinians as the first Jewish comedian to perform in the Palestine Comedy Festival. And all these amazing things started happening. And my content became viral in the Arab media when I was making fun of Saudi Arabia warming up ties with Israel. So I offered the MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi crown prince, to marry me.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I will never let that happen, Noam. I will, God damn it, I will not let that happen.
I'm telling you, this went so viral, and I made up that I'm starting a party and I'm running for elections. So the whole Arab media, the day after my joke on TV, had a viral title that says, Zionist party leader proposes marriage to Mohammed bin Salman. And then the day after, because my mom is an Iranian Jew, so my grandma listened to the news in Iran. And the Iranian media had a take on it the day after, and they said Iranian Jewish comedian made a joke, Arabs didn't get the joke. So I didn't know which conflict I'm on, like between Iranians and Arabs, between Jews and Arabs. So, long story short, I realized with these jokes that become viral when you're actually making fun of things that are like sensitive and political, that you can reach more people. Yes. With this amazing craft that we have, rather, than I was ever able to do as part of an organization or as an activist.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, comedy art is so powerful, right? If you ever look at societies that don't really thrive and don't move forward, no, don't have progress, just look at their art. If their art, if art is non-existent or art doesn't have the freedom the way it is to thrive, you're gonna see a society struggle. I mean, that's how human beings communicate, and that's how we tell our stories and bond and connect with each other.
For
I mean,
sure.
that is so amazing that here you are, like making headlines about stuff like this. Like, what about your parents? Like, are your parents like, oh my god, I'm worried about you, like, don't get hurt, are you getting threats because of you doing this? Like, what happened after that?
My family is super, super, super supportive. Really, like my family is so supportive, but because I'm really in a sensitive field, and I put myself in a position where not only am I a Jewish comedian that's doing content in Arabic, criticizing Israel, and sometimes it is a bit, I can see it on my parents that it's hard for them, that with the success, when you get attention,
Yeah.
my last video here that I made in Arabic, it got, within 10 days, it got 1.5 million views.
Wow.
I made this like satirical sketch about the new Emirati from Dubai tourists coming to Israel, and I used it to show them, like the edgy sides of Israel. I can send it to you.
Yeah, please
on my
do.
YouTube. On my YouTube, I made it with the English subtitles.
Okay.
And just on Facebook, it got so many views within 10 days, like 1.5 million views. And so, when you're doing something that is like a hot topic and it's sensitive and you're criticizing Israel and, all these things, you get criticism, you get love, you get hate. And so, but my parents are learning to cope with it.
Yeah. What about you? How do you get stressed out? Do you get like, how does that make you feel? Like, you're just like, all right, I'm getting through to people. This is good. But then there's also this slew of backlash. I mean, I know that because I also get it because
Yeah.
yourself, I've also have made edgy jokes in the past. And my content, actually, I got an email from Homeland Security saying that my content has been banned in Saudi Arabia, in Pakistan, in Qatar, in Kuwait. Yeah, they banned a bunch of my stuff.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So do you get
Crazy.
stuff like that? Do you get shit like that? They're like, we're banning your shit in Saudi Arabia or whatever.
I didn't. I got a less like threatening kind of that I'm damaging the relationship with with Arab countries who are just signing like peace normalization agreements with Israel, that I'm damaging our relationship with them.
Who's sending you this? Like, just
Like spokes people that are connected to the army and stuff like that. Not, nothing too official, but the channel where I have my comedy sketches, they got complaints from these people. But
you must be doing something right now.
I know, yeah, that's what I was gonna say to you too. It's I think I need breaks in between.
Yes.
Yeah, because comedians, the last comment was really on point. I need breaks in between, and like I'm starting to get used to the peaks. There's like something gets published, and then you're on it for a few days, you're dealing with the noise, and then you need a few days of planning what's next and relaxing.
Yeah.
So I think I need these breaks in the middle. They're very important because people read something, they see something, they comment about something, they move on with their lives. We're not that important,
Yeah. Yes.
So the important thing is to keep traction, to keep on moving.
Yes.
This is what helps me.
Yes. I mean, I met this Israeli artist here, and she's a filmmaker, and she's here, and we were talking, and she made a comment that just always kind of cracks me up. And she was talking, and she was like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "There is no racism in Israel. Like, we're like so amazing. We have no racism in Israel." And I remember just looking at her and being like, "How could one person be this fucking stupid?" Like, I'm just like, racism is like everywhere.
Everywhere.
it's, I mean, what do you mean? Like, she just said it with like, oh my God, no, like very Stepford wife, fucking like nothing's happening upstairs. We have like no racism. And she's a filmmaker, which was really alarming to me because I'm just like, what kind of content are you putting out with that kind of lack of awareness? You know, Noam? I mean, there's plenty of racism in Israel. There's plenty of racism in Pakistan too.
There is racism in a family, in a household. Like my dad is an Ashkenazi Jew, blonde and blue eyes, and my mom is a dark Iranian Jewish woman.
Wow.
My blonde grandma was racist towards my mom. Like we have racism in our blood sometimes.
That's right. That's right.
It's the human intention to not human intention. We tend to be racist and we tend to fight racism at the same time. There's nothing like a, you know, there is
forming is also complex, right? You have certain belief systems you grow up with. Then as an adult, you're just like, either you choose to be like, no, that's bullshit. That's not real. Like, that's a ridiculous stereotype. Like, that's not true. And then you begin to form your own stuff, or you choose to be like this crazy filmmaker who's just like, there's no racism in Israel. And you're just like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's
but you know, I mean, brainwashing is real. And maybe if you grow up in a privileged place where you didn't get to see people starving, people being shot because of their skin color, you really think that there is no racism. If you think that a person who got shot because he's a Palestinian or has dark skin or whatever deserved it, or you don't know the reasons, or you don't know the mechanism behind it, you're really not going to think that there is racism.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's absolutely very valid point. What for you, like when you perform in, I mean, are there comedy clubs in Tel Aviv?
Yeah.
And so when pre-pandemic, you know, when you're going out there and performing, you're going up there and you're talking about your woke comedy the way you are you getting heckled by audience members to be like, you're not a real Jew, or you're not a real Israeli, or like
I think most like, you know, bullying as such happen online with talkbacks and comments. You know, there are more comedians. I mean, not exactly like me, but I think comedy attracts
broken people.
Broken people who are thinking outside of the box. So I will have so organically, I think a lot of my comedian friends are really like okay and are happy with you know, my stories and stuff. To be honest, audiences will laugh at you if you're funny.
Mm-hmm.
If they disagree with you and you're not funny, yes, I have evenings when I'm like, oh my God, she wasn't funny and she was like this leftist and stuff. But if I'm funny, don't care. They're gonna laugh even if they disagree with me.
Yeah.
And so it's a very, you know, I think what I like to do, and that's why I go to mainstream comedy clubs here in Israel, because I respect people and I act from love. And I know that people have the ability to understand complex messages, even if it's hard for them to digest.
Yeah.
And I think that when we act from love, people see it. And even if they disagree with you, they can be like, okay, you have a different story and it was actually funny and I respect you for that.
Mm-hmm. Like you're saying intent matters. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Because people can feel that, right? Like human beings are social animals, right? We can feel when somebody's being genuine, somebody actually cares, somebody actually comes from a place of love, and they're not being malicious about it, right? They're just like, I'm trying to make a point and trying to show you a different perspective through a funny, you know, message. But my intent is good. My intent is not here to like be demeaning or that. I'm trying to come from a place of love to open a channel of understanding.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that when we give people the respect that they can, I'm not going to spare my opinions or my willingness to create some kind of provocation of thoughts with my comedy because I'm afraid of you. I trust you enough and I give you enough dignity so that you can understand my messages.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have you performed comedy in Palestine as well, in areas of
Yes.
Palestine? And where have you performed in Palestine?
I performed in East Jerusalem. I also performed in front of Palestinian audiences in the United States, in Dearborn,
Wow.
in Nazareth, in Haifa, here in Jaffa, like
Yeah. And
a lot of
what is the reception like most of the time? I mean, are you doing comedy in
amazing
English and Arabic? What are you doing?
English and Arabic. Also, some Palestinians understand Hebrew. So, but really, Palestinian audiences are so full of love, respect,
Yeah.
and you know, I am always welcomed
Yeah.
with enormous amount of love,
Yeah.
an enormous amount of thirst for solidarity and laughter.
Yeah.
Even when I say hard truths to them, you know, I don't spare anyone my criticism.
Yeah.
You know, I think that there is something for Palestinians, there is something truly, truly unique in the way they receive me as a Jewish comedian that's there to, you know, challenge the system, break down some barriers that exist today that are so hard to break down.
Yeah.
Look, the reality is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I can't perform deep in the West Bank, like in Bethlehem or Ramallah yet, because I move freely, you know, between the checkpoints and stuff, and they are behind the checkpoints with no permits from the Israeli army. They are under military occupation. So the situation is very, very unique for an Israeli comedian to come into the West Bank and perform. But on social media and in other places that are like somewhere in the middle, like Jerusalem and stuff, I'm being received with a lot of love, and
Yeah.
I hope that you know, in the coming future I will be able to perform in more places, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah. I mean, I want to know, I'm like, you know, when you go and perform in these places, is it always like young people that come? Is it people in their 30s? Is it people in their 40s? And do you have to keep it all very G rated? Like, you can't just be like out there, like, you know, dropping cuss words. Like, you can be like sharmutas. Like, you can't be just like out there, which is
Well,
a hoe.
like I can flirt with it or like whisper some stuff, or you know, but no, I'm not gonna provoke with these things too much. If
Yeah.
it's a young audience, maybe, but there are a lot of families usually, or kids or stuff, so I'll try to keep it
Very
clean. But when I'm in a comedy club at night, yeah.
Yeah, you can. I mean, comedy clubs are just like you
Yeah.
can do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah, I mean that's amazing. How does it work at the comedy clubs in Tel Aviv? I mean, you know, here there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of sucking up. You know, the booker. You get a cheap TV show, so all of a sudden your star rises. How is it in Tel Aviv? Like, do you just call up the booker and be like, "Hey, I'm a comedian. Give me a spot." Like, how does that work?
Well, the scene is small and it's not unique in the way that it's dominated by men, of course.
Of course it is.
But you know, it's very similar to everywhere else, where you start getting up every night, and people start getting to know you, and also, you know, if you're a woman, you know, you're kind of like, you know.
Are you one of the only women in comedy in Israel? How many female comics are there?
No, we even have a few initiatives of like female comedy nights that I'm part of that are really, really cool.
Okay.
I would say that we have the mainstream scene and the alternative scene.
Okay.
The alternative scene is full of like these weirdos, leftists, queer people, you know, just like everywhere else. You have these like a little bit of outsiders, people with, you know, with like these weird stories and stuff. And then you have the mainstream that is more like sex jokes and Tinder jokes and
sure.
And you know, I feel like my home base, the people that I'm most comfortable with are in the alternative scene. Yeah. But all of us will also go and participate in mainstream open mics and trying out materials and stuff. But there is a lot of interesting things happening in the alternative scene also.
Yeah, I bet. You know, I had. Do you know Rula Jibril? Do you know who she is?
Yeah.
So
yeah, she wrote.
Yeah, you know who she is, right?
Yeah.
Big Palestinian Italian journalist. So I had Rula on as a guest, right? And Rula and I had a really great conversation. And we were just talking about, American politics. We're talking about international politics and all that. I mean, I don't know if you've seen her infamous interview with Bill Maher on HBO. That went down, and she was like calling Bill Maher out. She was like, you're always very Islamophobic, and he was like, I wasn't. I have you here. How could I be Islamophobic? Right? So they were going back and forth, and that's where I discovered Rula, and I was like, who is this gorgeous human being? I must talk to her. And I remember talking to Rula, and she made a point, and I want to ask you about this. She said that if you were gay, and I had that conversation with Bashar too, right? Bashar Murad, who's the Palestinian pop star who is gay. That she said that you were totally safe if you were openly gay in Palestine. So I want to ask you, in Israel, what is that like? Is it like, hey, it's kind of like America, where of course, if you're in Los Angeles or New York, you don't have to worry about your life being endangered or being facing threats, versus if you live in fucking Mississippi or Alabama. And is it like that in Israel too? If so, what cities?
I would say generally yes, it's like that. But do you really think that any LGBTQ person is fully safe anywhere in the world? I don't
Not anywhere in the
think
world.
so.
No. But I'm just talking about particular countries and their cities.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking about United
Look,
States. I mean, I would never say an LGBTQ member would be safe in cities, even in main cities in Pakistan. I mean, they're not, right?
yeah.
They're not.
Look, in general, I will say that in a non-traditional setting, in a non-religious place like here in Tel Aviv, I mean,
Yeah.
people here are, but the thing is that, okay, so there is like the specific examples of cities where it's normal and it's being accepted, and then there is like policy, and there's government, and there is like officials.
Mm-hmm.
You're not protected if you're gay here. You don't have rights. You can't get married. You don't
Okay.
get any
I
rights.
thought
You
gay marriage
can't.
is legal in Israel.
No.
Hmm.
Every marriage that is non-religious is not. We don't have civil marriage. You can't get married. People go abroad to get the civil marriage.
So if a Jewish person and a Muslim person want to get married, they can't get married in Israel?
No. They have to have either a Muslim
Wedding?
registered wedding or a Jewish registered wedding. In the Ministry of Religion, in the Interior Ministry and the Ministry of Religion. If you want to get civil marriage non-religious, you have to do it somewhere else, or find alternative organizations, NGOs that are somehow doing it here with budgets that are like non-government budgets.
Huh. And is it like that in
So
Palestine too? Like, can a Muslim and a Jewish person get married? Or
no, look, like, I'm not an expert. I'm also not Palestinian. I don't know. I mean, and I'm sure that there are a lot of complex issues around that too. But
Sure.
what I know is that Israel likes to wave the pride flag, and we have these like crazy parades every year, and we say what an amazing democracy is. But when you look down at the facts, it's not like this, and it's a chain of problems of how we treat minorities, how we treat Palestinians, and then how you treat gay people, and it's very much all intertwined into a system that doesn't respect the marginalized and the weak, and so it's all part of it. There is this constant discussion of intersection of struggles here also.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have people in the right wing, and you have people in the who are proudly serving in the army, and you have people who are even are racist towards Arabs or Palestinians. And then you ask the questions: how can you, as a member of the LGBT community, how can you not see that the people who fought for your rights, for your recognition as a gay person, as an LGBTQ person, are the people who you are against them? and how can you not see how these struggles intertwine and intersect? So there's a lot of discussion around this here of how we glorify, the LGBT community and the rights of gay people and stuff. But if it doesn't go with a chain of the other struggles that need to happen parallel, it's very, very, very difficult because it doesn't fully happen here.
Because you mean like it's hypocritical? Like how could you? Like I mean, what fascinates me is that Israel's having these gay parades and flying the pride flag, but they're not legalizing gay marriage. Like I thought that was something that was tied in. It's just like, oh, we celebrate gay marriage. That's why we have Pride Parade, and that's why we. So I mean, if you have, but you have, I'm sure there are gay bars. I'm sure there are gay things where you can go and get together and meet other.
Yeah, because people are amazing. Because people are amazing.
Sure.
And people are practicing their freedom in the streets, not because it's backed by a system that is really like giving them the chance to do it.
Right. Absolutely. I mean,
and those people are serving the country. The country is not serving them.
Right. Right. Absolutely. But they don't get punished by the government. The government doesn't come and say, hey, we're going to shut this gay bar down because, we don't allow gay marriage.
No, there is, of course, people have freedom to practice. But a few years ago in the gay parade, a young girl was stabbed by an extreme religious person.
Because just for being gay?
Yeah. Trans women here also get murdered, just like in the United States. The rates are just as bad. So we see very, very similar patterns happening. Very similar patterns.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting. Israel's still a fairly young country compared to America. America really has no excuse for this kind of shit to go down.
That's true.
We're such an old democracy, at least we claim ourselves to be. But there's a lot of shit where you're just like, what's going on here? Really, I don't know. You're not practicing what you're preaching. No, I don't know. I know we're coming up to an hour here, but I wanted to actually ask you, that program that you were doing at Harvard, when you were here, you also opened for Maz Jobrani, didn't you?
Yes.
And you performed for him. And what was that like? Because Maz's crowd is mostly Iranian American.
Maz's crowd is very diverse. It's a lot of immigrants, people of color, Iranian, Arab American, Jewish American, basically like all the brown.
Yes, all shades of brown.
I can't even describe to you what Maz did to my experience in the US.
Aww.
You come to the US as a comedian who's never performed in America, and suddenly Maz puts you on the main stage at the Kennedy Center in front of 3,000 people. And
amazing.
The director of the comedy program in the Kennedy Center sees my opening act, and the day after I get an email inviting me to premiere my show. Wow. in the Kennedy Center. These things that you just like. And Maz taught me so much also about humility. He is so humble.
Yeah.
And he paid me for these opening acts. And I'm saying this not because it's like we're in such a fragile place when we're in the beginning of the road, and when you have people like this believing in you and showing you, giving you the stage that you deserve and the confidence that you deserve. And he was working on materials with me and helping me with my show, and there were so many plans. I feel so grateful, really.
Yeah. I mean, Maz is such a sweetheart, I mean, he was on my podcast, and we had a really great conversation about him and how even in the main American mainstream, how he's referred to as an Iranian American comedian. And it's just like,
right.
He's just a comedian who just happens to be of Iranian descent.
Right. Yeah.
He just doesn't do jokes for the Iranian community. He does.
It's true. It's true, but I think the initial bond between us was that I think he was really he was really, it was interesting to him that a woman that like was born in Israel, so much of her content is about the fact that her mom is an Iranian Jew that, was born in Iran. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's sometimes when I talk about these things here, people are telling me, come on, Noam, you're not Iranian, you're Israeli and your mom was born in Iran and stuff. But in the United States, there is more legitimacy for this type of like politics of identity.
Yeah.
And so I think, this, like with Maz, it was really interesting from that angle. But also, you're amazing, guys. I got a dip, but please keep sharing your voices. Whoosh. Thank you, Sean.
Appreciate it. I mean, right? You're absolutely right. When you come to, so are you done with this Harvard program, or is it still going?
The Harvard program is done. We finished it by Zoom. But I will come back to the United States when the world is back to normal to perform, to do like a tour. So hopefully I will see you again, Mona.
I know, Noam. I would love to see you. I mean, you and I met in a very interesting circumstance, because you and I got hired to perform for Women Creating Change, which is an organization started by Lee Broda, who's a producer also in Hollywood here. She's also Israeli. And it's interesting, it's so funny because I got asked to come and perform on that show. And I didn't know who Lee was. And I was just like, I don't know who these people are. And I later discovered that I was asked to come and be on that show because I used to produce my show, Minority Reports, in Orange County. And one of the fellow Israeli ladies who is part of Women Creating Change came and saw me, couldn't stop laughing. It was just like, whoever this person is, we need her on the show.
Oh, wow.
That's how I ended up on the show. Because I was like, wait, it's all Arabs and Jews. Like, what am I doing here? I'm South Asian. I mean, I'm Muslim, but like I'm South Asian. Like I didn't know it was like ethnicity thing. But I had a great time. I remember meeting you, and then you were talking about, I go to Harvard, and I'm opening for Mas Jabrani and all that. And I was just like, okay, Noam is really cool. And then later discovered all these other fantastic things about you. So I was really, fascinated by all of it.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Coming to LA, meeting you, getting it. This is exactly how I envisioned, my time in the United States, kind of, to meet female comedians like you. I often feel very alone here with the type of topics that I talk about, or even, how I look, and seeing you, I'm like, oh, you look like one of my cousins. And, I'm like really, really drawn to you and your content and stuff. So I really, really hope that I can come back to the US and see you and perform again. And I miss the stage so much.
I miss it too, Noam. Well, you had an offer to do the Dubai Zoom show, but have you performed in Dubai at all yet, or no?
No, I haven't been to Dubai.
That is an experience, Noam. I got flown out to headline a show in Dubai.
Wow.
That was something else, my friend.
Yeah?
I think
the experience...
It was amazing. It was a phenomenal experience. I think what happens is that as an artist in America, at least as a comic, you're like struggling for so long. You're like performing in fucking laundromats. Like you're trying to, at a mic for like 2 hours to get 5 minutes in. Like, I don't know what your experience has been with open mics and stuff, but here, like that struggle is very, very real. You're driving all over the freaking place in Los Angeles. In New York City, it's not like that. New York City, you can just go to one neighborhood and perform in 4 shows or 4 mics in one night. You can just be like, bam, bam, bam. It's all next to each other. LA isn't like that. You got to drive. You got to park. You got to get through the traffic, blah, 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 all of that shit. But I remember, like, for me, I was like, man, you're like eating shit for so long. And then all of a sudden you're in Dubai and being treated like a queen. And you're like, oh. Your self-esteem is like, I'm not ready to handle this. This is
too soon.
This is too much. This is like, I don't know how to take this. Do I deserve? Is that for me? You're like, oh, I don't really know.
Amazing. Oh my God.
For me, that's what I was going through. I remember my mom's side of the family all lives in Dubai. They grew up there. So when I showed up and they were just like, you're doing what now? What are you doing here? I was like, I'm telling like jokes. Like, you guys want to come by or something? And they were like, nah. No, we don't. They're not that important. And I was like, that's cool. No, that's fair. That's entirely fair.
Sounds like Dubai.
Sounds like family, dude. That sounds like my family. I go to Texas. My family lives in Texas. When I go and visit them, I'm like, hey, my brother was like, what are you doing tonight? I was like, hey man, I'm doing like 2 sets at this comedy club. You guys want to roll with me? Nah. They're like, nah. I'm like, what are you doing at home? They're like, watching TV. I'm like, so you'd rather watch TV at home than come watch your sister perform? That's cool. No, that sounds about right. That sounds.
I miss performance. Sorry, of course, like every Middle Eastern person, I didn't plug my charger correctly. So
is that a Middle Eastern person thing? I think that's just anybody who has a laptop thing.
Right. Yeah, but the unorganized people.
The unorganized people.
But listen, I sometimes the Zoom shows are so. I mean, of course, it's not the same effect and not the same thing.
Yeah.
But there's something so weird about like opening your screen, doing this, and just like getting into your bed. There's no replacement for the stage, and I can't wait to perform in places like Dubai or the US or stuff. But it is definitely something. These Zoom shows, it's crazy.
Zoom shows are just something else. Zoom shows, it's just not nearly the same. So I've been getting hired for a lot of private gigs. And I got hired to roast this guy on his 40th birthday. So I learned about him, talked to his wife, wrote the jokes. But there were also people tuning in from India, right? So they're not going to get some of the references. It's going to be rough. So I'm sitting there and I'm telling jokes, and all the American people are laughing. And the folks in India, they're like, we don't understand. We don't know why this is happening right now. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous right now. I don't know what the heck to do. So what the fuck are you going to do? Have your parents have been to your shows, haven't they, Noam?
Oh my God. I need to convince my parents not to come to my shows.
What? Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. I'm always like, but you heard these jokes. And my mom is like, no, but we want to hear it again. They're so cute.
So sweet.
Super, super, super supportive. And they love, and I make fun of them in my shows all the time, but they love it. They really love it.
I love that. Yeah. No, not my family. They're just like, okay, we don't need to come see you. It's fine. Cool. Noah, do you have any shows? We're going to wrap up. Do you have any shows or stuff coming up where people can watch you, or where can people? By the way, please do share your link about where people can go and watch your videos that went viral, because I would love.
Yeah. I will. I don't have any open Zoom shows yet, or like in the coming weeks, because all of them are private. But I will keep you posted when I have stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And do you have a website or social media where people can follow you?
Yes, my Instagram is Noam_June, Joon. And I have a lot of fun on Instagram. I also tweet. Noam Shuster is my handle, and I like Twitter and I like Instagram.
Awesome.
These are my
Awesome. Do you have and did you say you have a website or you don't?
I don't. I need to work on my website.
Yeah. A website is a good place for people to just send them there, and you have all your there. So that's a cool thing. Yeah. Well, Noam, this has been a really fun conversation, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see you. I'm sorry we didn't get to do the event together, but I saw the video and it was okay.
Yeah. That's totally cool. Yeah. We're going to bring you back on again soon, because I actually have an Israeli peace activist friend. He just moved from Tel Aviv to Galilee. His name is Adar Weinreb. I don't know if you know who he is.
No, I'm not sure I know who he is.
He's fantastic. I brought him on a few times. We've had just some amazing conversations and just learned so much about the history and about what he does, and how he kind of became a peace activist while he was in the IDF. He just had a moment of he just had a vision, and it just changed his life. He was like,
Wow.
yeah, he's amazing. And he does all this amazing work where he brings in all this Palestinian youth and Israeli youth together to have conversation about a two-state solution and how they can achieve that. Yeah,
Nice.
he's a good dude. He's
Look
a good
at you with all your woke Israeli friends.
Well, my woke Israeli friends. Listen, I try to contact as many woke people around the world because
I know.
The
You're
woke-
amazing.
No, you guys are amazing. Thank you. You're so kind. I mean, my objective is to bring on as many healers. To me, you guys are healers as much as comedy that you do or I do. And Adar doesn't do comedy, but you guys are healers to me, and I want to give as many healers the platform as I possibly can. That's
Inshallah. Thank you, Habibti. It was
Thank you,
so
Habibti.
great talking to you.
Thank you very much, my friend. Very nice chatting with you. Thank you for staying up late for me. So
We'll be in touch soon and do more things together soon.
absolutely, I will talk to you soon. Stay safe out there. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye. That was the lovely Noam Shuster. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I know I definitely did. I also always learned so much, when I talk to folks that are in other countries and going through, being an artist, like what that experience is like. I just feel like a much better, well-informed person. So hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. If you haven't followed me on my YouTube channel, please do. You can go on youtube.com/Mona Sheikh Comedian. And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Mona's Comedy. And of course on Facebook at Mona Sheikh Comedian. You guys, thank you very much for tuning in at an unusual time because we had a very special guest and I wanted to accommodate her. And I will see you guys soon. Have a lovely day.